panel session that we will have now today is organized by the partnership of West Nordic Feminists that Women's Rights Association is part of. It's called Control Over Women's Bodies is the Basis of Patriarchy. So it will be a panel discussion, but before the panel, I will introduce the panelists, the word. But before the panel discussion starts, we will have a short introduction into the topic by Irma Erlingsdóttir, who is a professor at the University of Iceland and director of Gender Studies program. I'm probably not saying it completely correctly. Grow guests. So Irma, please, I will give you the floor.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Irma Erlingsdóttir, as has been said, professor and director of Grow Guest at the University of Iceland, a program we run under the auspices of UNESCO, and that focuses on gender equality, social justice, and sustainable development. Today, I would like to share insights into the work of Michelle Perrault, if I pronounce her name in Icelandic, a pioneering French historian whose contributions to women's history continue to resonate, especially in our current moment of backlash against feminism and gender theory. Born in 1928, Michelle Perrault has spent her career uncovering the overlooked and often invisible lives of women in history. She astutely noted that the historienne, the female historian, often sees what the historien does not, highlighting how women historians bring different perspectives to the historical record. Now, in her late 90s, she remains remarkably active and outspoken, continuing to engage with contemporary debates and developments, always drawing vital links between the past and the present. Her work is especially relevant when discussing how control over women's bodies has served as a cornerstone of patriarchal systems. At a time when we are witnessing renewed efforts of rollback reproductive rights, discredit gender theory, and restrict bodily autonomy, Perrault's work offers both a warning and a guide. She shows how the regulation of women's bodies through sexuality, reproduction, labor, and public space has historically been central to patriarchal control. These controls weren't incidental. They were embedded in law, in religion, medicine, and culture. Her theory is rooted in the understanding that this domination has deep institutional and historical roots. Perrault's theory is also grounded in the understanding that these mechanisms of control are not static. They evolve and re-emerge in new forms. Her analysis of reproductive control, for example, points to how women's bodies were long seen as national resources to produce citizens, workers, and soldiers. In many historical contexts, women's reproductive choices were dictated by state policy, whether through bans or contraception or forced sterilization, depending on what served national or ideological goals. This remains painfully relevant today. The global rollback of abortion rights, including in the US and parts of Europe, is not just a legal issue, it's historical continuation of efforts to deny women full agency over their bodies. The battles we thought were won are being reopened. Beyond reproduction, Perot examined how societies have policed female sexuality, constructing women as either virtuous or deviant, with few options in between. She traced how institutions such as the church, medicine, and even early psychology help and transform myths about female desire, morality, and purity. These ideas still echo today in everything from sex education policies to media portrayals of women, and persists in modern forms of slut-shaming, victim blaming, and rigid gender expectations. Perot's work helps us to recognize the current debates around modesty, consent, or sexual freedom, and not merely cultural disagreements, but part of a much longer history of gendered surveillance and control. Perot also explored how capitalism and modernity have commodified women's bodies. With industrialization, women entered the labor force in ways that were both liberating and exploitative. As capitalism evolved, women's appearances became commercialized through fashion, advertising, and beauty standards. These industries still profit by enforcing narrow ideals and often intersect with race, class, and ableism. The pressure to conform, perform, and be visible in particular ways continue to shape women's lives. But perhaps one of the most powerful aspects of Perot's work is her attention to resistance. And this might be the reason why I was asked to speak here today about Michel Perot's work. Women have always pushed back through activism, through work, and simply by surviving systems designed to suppress them. Yet today, we are seeing a strong backlash to that resistance. Anti-feminist movements are growing, not just politically, but culturally, through cultural movements that aim to reassert traditional gender roles and discredit the very idea of gender as a social construct. This backlash often targets gender theory itself, casting it as a dangerous ideology, a threat to the established order. We see this in attacks on LGBTQ+ rights, in efforts to ban discussions of gender in schools, and in laws restricting access to reproductive health care. But Perot reminds us that this is not new. Patriarchy has always reacted strongly when challenged. Perot's work reminds us that these reactions are not new, as I said before. They are part of a long history of patriarchy attempts to control, restrict, and oppress women. Her theory offers a framework for understanding this resistance and for empowering us to continue the fight for gender justice. Feminist movements, as Perot notes, are not just about addressing individual wrongs, they are about dismantling the systems of power that have kept women, and by extension, gender non-conforming people, subjugated for centuries. Michel Perot's work serves as a vital reminder of the deep historical roots of these struggles. Feminism is not a monolithic or modern invention. It is a long-standing movement that has evolved over centuries. So to conclude, Michel Perot offers us a historical lens through which we can better understand today's backlash. Her work gives us both context and clarity, showing that the struggles we face now are not new, but part of a long continuum. If we are to defend the rights and freedom gained over the past century, we must remember how fragile and hard-won they are, and how deeply the systems that oppose them are entrenched. Thank you.
Tack Irma, thank you so much. Great introduction into the panel. Now that will be the led or moderated by Helene Fosberg, a friend from Denmark, Kvinderådet, right? General manager of Danish Women's Association. Björt Lind from Faroe Island. Linda Dröfn Gunnarsdóttir, Kvennaathvarf, and Julia Kristín Isaksen, that is coming at a very short notice here, and we are very thankful for her. She's Greenlandic, and as I said, this is the event organized by the West Nordic Cooperation, and Helene and Björt are part of it, together with Women's Rights Association, Icelandic Women's Rights Association. So I give you the floor. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you very much. My name is Helene Forsberg, as just mentioned, and I represent the Danish Women's Council. Is this working? Yeah. And just before you all get terrified, I've just been speaking to so many wonderful people here in Iceland, so therefore I have no voice, but that is actually a good thing, because it means that it's going to be the panel who is going to talk most. But just for a start, I just want to thank you very much for that very good introduction to the conversation we are going to have. And as Tatjana said, it is linked to the work we do in the West Nordic collaboration, where we are trying to look into, so how is actually the status for women's rights and equality in the West Nordic region, and how can we support and strengthen each other by collaborating. So what we are going to talk about is, of course, your perspectives on what have just been said. How is the status actually in Greenland, in Iceland, and in Faroe Islands? So I want to start over with the host. Now we are here in Iceland, so can you just introduce yourself briefly and just give us a short status? How does the women autonomy, how does it feel these days in Iceland?
Yes, thank you. My name is Linda Dröfn Gunnarsdóttir. I am the general manager of the Icelandic Women's Shelter. So, in few words, the status in Iceland. This is, of course, always complicated. And I did hear some gasps before when our Faroean friends were introducing the status in their country. And she's giving her fisherman friends. So nice. This is very Icelandic.
I love those. I haven't had them for years.
So, but it is also just a good reminder that the battle is never won, and we are not as far from it here as we might think sometimes. So, as Irma just so vividly described, that these steps forwards, 3 steps forwards, 2 steps back, that we are continually taking, and that this patriarchy is always in the background. Of course, we have much better laws when it comes to abortion rights, but at the same time we are still battling gender-based violence, which is probably the clearest form of patriarchy in Iceland today, that these numbers are not going down at all, and it is always evolving around dominance and power, and we are still facing a system that doesn't catch the women or the ones that are tolerating this. So this is a big issue here in Iceland, and we are facing this typical Nordic paradox here in Iceland, that we are always talking about that the equality is already here, so it's even more difficult sometimes to take these steps and trying to be loud about this. But this is still an ongoing big problem in Iceland, and it is affecting the whole system, and it is systematic to keep down or hold down women's power in the working force or wherever in Iceland. Of course, we do have these tops in Iceland now, like the ministers, head of church, president are female. But at the same time, we are still facing these problems. It is not changing. So this is something that we have to be very serious about. And we are seeing the Nordic countries having these backlashes, and they are looking towards Iceland as there are more positive things happening here. At the same time, we cannot forget that the fight continues. We are never there. So this is basically the status in Iceland. Please add to it, because they are all Icelanders and they know a lot more about it than me in some places. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And there's definitely a lot of that we can recognize in the Danish context as well, where we also experience a great lot of gender-based violence, although we had 2 female prime ministers as well. It didn't change this situation. But over to you, Faroe Islands. We just heard very much about your good work on abortion rights, but maybe you can widen it a little and tell us a little about the status for women's right to their own body on a broader level.
Yeah, well, it's quite similar as to what you talked about as well. We can see a huge increase in women seeking help for gender-based violence in the Faroe Islands. And we still have a long way to go with the wage gap, and the abortion rights, of course, as I told you about. And something that is also quite, that we're struggling a bit with as well in the Faroe Islands is rights for LGBT people. So I think it's, and as I said before, the Faroe Islands are a modern country with modern progressive people, but with laws that are kind of a bit behind the rest of the world, or especially not the rest of the world, but the West Nordic countries. So the women are not fully autonomous humans. We don't have full control of our bodies because we don't have abortion rights or free abortion, and we're still, as other countries experiencing huge levels or high levels of gender-based violence and discrimination and sexism and you know, the same, I think, that is happening everywhere else we can see in the Faroe Islands. And maybe because the Faroe Islands are so small in some ways that it becomes very personal, because you always know someone, or it's closer to, it becomes very anecdotal, it becomes very personal. So it's not just numbers, maybe as it is in other countries, bigger countries. It's very personal in the Faroe Islands, because we know someone who hasn't been able to have an abortion. We know someone who's been to the shelter. We know these women. So that's also a difference, I think, in the Faroe Islands. Yeah.
Thank you. And Julia, I know you stepped in the very last minute, and I know it's always hard to speak on behalf of a whole country. So that being said, I'm going to ask you anyway, how do you experience the situation in Greenland in relation to these questions we are talking about, women's rights to decide for their own body, women's autonomy? Do you have any perspectives on that?
Yeah, thanks for calling me. And then as you said, I just stepped in, so in very short notice. But it's really interesting what you're doing here, and we also in Faroe Island, we are so few, and even more isolated than maybe from them. And then, so I'm from South. Maybe it's good to let you know I'm from South. So I lived in Nuuk for 1.5 years recently. So I moved back here. I have 2 daughters, and I think it's like in Faroe Islands, quite isolated places and a few. So any incident it occurs to news media or social media, we usually know somebody. So it's I know some people who have been in not the good situations, and then and some part of it is like we are always looking up to Iceland regarding to those center, neutral and everything, and so I think from my perspective, it's going there is a progress, and when there are some things that occur on the surface, then they're really bad, like spiral sign. Yeah, they're heavy stuff, but in general, I think there's always some progress, and always, we are so few, so it really depends on who are saying stuff. It really depends who are making them obvious on the surface and talking about them. So we are quite sensitive who is doing and who is saying what. So I'm really interested in this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for giving these good perspectives on such a short notice. I'm just gonna go into some of the numbers we see, because as you know, we do actually have a lot of data as well on how the condition is here in the north, which is really pointing towards us having to understand this Nordic paradox a little better. And you were talking about it as well, because Eurostat has just made a new inquiry on all across Europe, and what it shows is that we actually, in the Nordic countries, have a great amount of women who are experiencing gender-based violence. It can be sexual violence, physical violence, or psychological violence. For Denmark, the numbers is 47.5 of all women who experience this during a lifetime. So what are the numbers actually here in Iceland?
We had a big survey from the university that showed us that I think it was 40% of all women experience gender-based violence at some time in their life. So I think the numbers are pretty much the same. What is like really concerning to us that we have a whole new generation of women and of men that are using violence, that are getting so much more education about this and the different types of violence and how they appear. Also, we see this in the women that are coming to us, that they are seeking help sooner. The society is pushing them to seek help more than before, and they are naming more different types of violence as domestic violence, for example, that they have bigger understanding or deeper understanding on how this can spread into every aspect of your life, like financial violence or sexual violence, and stalking, of course, is all types of domestic violence. But we don't see the numbers go down at all, and this is worrying, because this is telling us that we are not approaching it the right way. It cannot be approached from one side, like more education is not enough. It has to be approached from every single aspect at the same time, because it's running that deep, and we cannot close our eyes to the fact that that is this systematic patriarchy that is in the background all the time. So it is this importance of what message is our politics sending to young men and to families. Like if we have sentences of femicide, if a woman is killed inside the home, the sentence is lower than if she is killed out on the street. So what kind of message are we sending by saying that or doing that? We are not securing, or we are not making women secure from their perpetrators. We are not using all the means or all the tools that we could possibly be using. Up until now, just talking about domestic violence has been like a personal issue. And it seems to be like that still, even though it's changing a lot. I don't think any of this is a coincidence, because this is all sending the message of some kind of control, some kind of dominance over women power. So it is not a coincidence that it takes so long and so many rounds to really battle this. And we are always going back in some way. And now we are adding on to social media, music, podcasts here in Iceland, for at least, is a big thing, where the discourse is going back again. And we are allowing people to talk again the way we haven't been talking about women in many, many years, or women in power, women in positions are stepping down because of this, for example, we can see. So, yeah, it's a complicated thing, and it's multi-layered, and it's not fixed in one with one cross, like, yes, let's increase education in school about different types of violence. This is not going to solve it one, like, it's. I think the first step is always, what kind of message are we sending through policies, through how we treat these cases. And we are actually taking steps forward here in Iceland, but it has been a long, long run, and we are not there at all. So we are not securing women. They have to leave their houses to escape violence. They cannot stay there. We are not taking the perpetrator out of the situation. And all of this is affecting also women in power or women at the labor market. This is all connected. So when we had the women's strike 2 years ago, it has mostly always been focused on women in the labor market and salaries. But we did put a lot bigger focus on gender-based violence this time. And a lot of people were surprised by this. Like, what does this has to do with the women's strike? And we really had to explain how gender-based violence affects women in the labor market as well. Like, if you are suppressed in your home, are you going to go and ask for a raise or a bigger position at the labor market? And there's a lot of financial violence. If you are leaving the home, you lose work. Women that are victims of domestic violence are showing much higher numbers in all kinds of physical illnesses. PTSD is a high number among these women. So this is all connected, and it's all part of keeping women down systematically.
Thank you. And Julia, I want to continue with you, because you were talking about before that you also in Greenlandic society have like experienced bad things, or like, but you were not really like putting more words on it. So I wanted to ask, all these things being said from an Icelandic perspective, is that something that you recognize into Greenlandic society as well, and the view on women connected to women's possibilities in society?
Yeah, definitely. And also, being said that we are really isolated places, sometimes it goes so slowly just to, and difficult for women who are being in those domestic violence, and just to, in maybe small places where everybody knows everybody, and you just can't really go to a shelter, maybe next place, and anyway, if you go, everybody will know. That's really common. I would I would also say that it's also depends on where you are in Greenland. You know, East Greenlanders are even more isolated than us in west part and west side, and then in North Greenland also. And that's I think that's also, it's a little bit different than on other Nordic places and West Nordic places, that what they have to deal with. And then I can't, it's heavy stuff I heard, and then also abortions and domestic violence, and those kind of rights, what they, every month when they have when they get a salary, or every, when increases and the news and it's common, unfortunately quite common, that the women are put in a difficult positions and difficult situations, which are not easily, even if they have the courage to step up and say something, but then maybe it will take much longer time to do something about it. So that's some of the, challenges they have in Greenland as women.
Thank you. And over to you, how do you experience the relation between some of these things happening to women and then the possibilities of actually going into politics, like taking the very high exposed roles in society and really creating the change we want to see? How do you see the relation?
In the Faroe Islands? Well, being a female politician, I think everywhere is difficult. But what we've seen in the Faroe Islands lately is that we have some young female politicians who have spoken up about maybe like sexism at work. And as I said before, this culture of silence, it just still exists. So even though they speak up about it, it was like a mini Me Too movement in the parliament. Everyone just shamed them, and they were like, well, you should just, that's how it is being a politician. You should, so instead of changing something in the workplace, they were shamed for talking about it. So we see these struggles of being a woman and putting your, being in power. But I was thinking about something when you were talking in forms of violence, that what we've seen in the Faroe Islands the last years is quite a lot of digital violence. We've seen women who have been, whose pictures have been manipulated online and who have been shared. There's this, it's called Golden Maps in the Faroe Islands. It has existed since I was a teenager, and at that time it was a diskette. Do you know this? And then it was it used to be like a physical thing where men put pictures and videos of women on and shared it between them. And then it was a USB, and now it is an online digital map, which we still see that men are uploading pictures of their ex-girlfriends and manipulating pictures of ex-girlfriends or just women they hate onto these platforms or these files and sharing them. And just a couple of years ago, 2 of these women stood in public and said, "We will not be shamed anymore." And this had not happened, in 20 years. So, as you said, Julia, there is progress also. So, of course, there's a lot of fighting still, but we see these especially young women, much younger than I am, these female politicians who dare speak up, these young women who dare speak up against this digital violence. But there's no law protecting them. Or there is a law, but it's very difficult to prosecute anyone for digital violence.
Can I, regarding those, for 1.5 years or something, they make a new rule about it in Greenland, which is called samtykkelov, where regarding the social media, those which were too common also, they got a new rule about it. So that's good, and they start to talk about it. As I told you, it really depends also who is putting them up on the surface. So it's been, well, I'm hopeful, but I'm not, but there are a lot of things to do to improve, but that's.
But I'm really happy to hear that you are still hopeful after all, because I think we really still need hope, but also still need a lot of work from all of us. So before we are rounding off this good conversation, I just want to ask you, what are we going to do these days, seeing the rise of the anti-gender movement, being in this political situation, and still in our societies dealing with these forms of patriarchy? What are the best advice you can give the younger generation in the feminist struggle going forward?
I think Irma said it pretty well. I put it well forward that, you know, this is the light at the end of the tunnel, that women never give up and we keep going, and we have this persistence and this faith in what we are doing. And even working at a women's shelter, that many people think it's like a horrible job, seeing misery and horrible things every day. Of course, there are very difficult stories, and with the digital violence, the violence keeps on going inside of the shelter, and also politicians trying to blame everything else than patriarchy, like it's we have racism, or these are foreign men, or whatever. There's always some ways that they are trying to sail around this, or using different groups against each other, but we always have this fight, and we are always taking steps forward, and that is the main thing. Is just like never start relaxing, because the fight is never over, and we do things that really are pushing people together to the same goal. And like I was saying, yes, working at the women's shelter, there are horrible things that you see, but mainly, most of the time, we are just seeing wonderful things. We are seeing strength. We are seeing women that are rising up and taking the most difficult steps that you can take in your life out of a close partner relationship with your children. They are sticking together. They are encouraging each other. And we just see them open up like flowers, both women and children, at the shelter. So just working there, you get hope every day. So my advice is just never give up and never fall asleep, you know, in this, like never get too comfortable and start looking at other countries like, oh my God, everything is so great here, and you are just really not doing your thing, because we are never safe. So always keep going forward.
Thank you so much. And Julia, you mentioned also you have 2 daughters. So what is your advice to them and to all the rest of the young women in Greenlandic society?
Yeah, I personally give my, you know, I'm really fortunate with my daughters. They are really outstanding. But, you know, I always, you know, that they have to, you know, be aware of the, you know, the situation around them. And because whatever society you go into, there's always some different approach to, you know, gender rights and everything, and female rights and everything. So I keep them updated in the best way I can. And then also with my Greenlandic friends and female friends, and just be updated and know your rights, and then, you know, just, you know, always don't be afraid to show your, you know, your ideas and aspirations. Yeah, it's always good to. And why, you know, going to I wasn't planning Monday to be in this, so it's It's quite, it's always something new, and it's always hope. There's always hope.
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to end with you, because now we had many...
I have the solution.
But we had many conversations on how Frit Val is getting the motivation again, because we need that. So let me know, what is your advice for the young people who are going to continue this?
I could start with saying, I think when we talk about education, I think sometimes I want to phrase this correctly. I think we always think that we should educate people to, don't misunderstand me, to like be like us. And I think we should all educate ourselves to know what is happening right now, if you know what I mean. So instead of kind of telling young men, you should all be feminists, I think we should be more curious to see what is happening with young men, with young people today, and why is this happening? Why are they... why do they want to share naked pictures of their ex-girlfriends? Like, what is this? What's happening? Where is it coming from? And and it's of course women also do toxic things. But I think we should be careful of not alienating a part of the culture. A part of our society when we talk about education and when we talk about feminism, because we all need to be educated on what is going on in society. And as far as Fruitval and what we are gonna do, I think we should also just keep pushing on and knowing that there is a light at the end, and there will be a change, and at the end, like, justice is, or rättvisa, justice? No. Yeah. Justice. Yeah. Or like like we will win, if you know what I mean. Like because equality and that is a fair society. So, and we all know that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that hopeful perspective in the end. And thank you all so much for bearing with me and my voice as well. I don't know if we have time for some questions. Yeah, so if there is any question, then it's now.
Thank you so much. Maybe not so much of a question, but a small comment. My name is Steinund, and I'm a former politician and the former chair of the West Nordic Council. And I have to say, I am so happy that West Nordic women are grouping together. And I really want to encourage you to take contact with the West Nordic Council, because I think that the cooperation parliamentarians in Iceland, the Faroe Islands and Greenland are having, they are so often on the male-dominated sides of society, and they can do with so much more feminism and a feminist push. And I think it would be to connect it with what Irma was talking about, how societies or governments want to make use of women's reproductive rights. I think that there is a great opportunity for the West Nordics to group together and make an issue about this, because we have been societies until very recently with very high levels or with many children. Why is it changing? There is something about the condition of young people, and I know that young people in the West Nordic countries, they like to meet up and talk together. So I just wanted to give you this advice, that I think that this is a very good opportunity for women's rights and feminist perspective to squeeze into the West Nordic politics. Yes. So thank you very much.
And thank you very much. And I can assure you that we are already working on that, and had a wonderful meeting yesterday with the West Nordic Council, some of the representatives. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, a lot of questions. Christine? two, three.
Well, thank you very much. You know, we here in Iceland are celebrating 50 years since the United Nations Women's Year. And, you know, we have seen changes in Iceland. We have seen a lot of success in politics, on the labor market. You see women everywhere. But when it comes to violence against women, well, we don't know if the situation is worse, but at least it's not better, I think I can say. And I have thought a lot about this. Why is this? And you are talking about education. I think we need something much more than education. And if we ask I think, you know, these are the deep structures of society. This is how women are perceived and so on. So I've been thinking, are we in the women's movement, and I have been active for a very long time, are we far too polite? You know, do we really need to be more aggressive? Where have we seen results, and when? With actions. Actions. You know, whether it was the Red Stocking movement in Iceland, you know, the Women's List, the Icelandic Feminist Society, you know, actions in the streets. So I really think that we should think and discuss this. We need to do much more. We need to find out how can we change these deep structures. Mm-hmm. The state, you know, the patriarchal state within.
Yes. Does she get the name in? Or?
Thank you, Christine, and I totally agree. And I think maybe the women movement in Iceland really needs to incorporate this more, even more than they have begun to, but like even more, because it is difficult for us that are working with the victims to be very political, because our aim is always to keep our arms open to every woman, unrelated to class or political views. So of course we are always spokeswomen for this change, but we really need the women movement to come with this political force into this discussion. So it's thank you for this point, Christine.
Helene, do we have time for two questions? Or?
Yeah, no. Yes, let's take some more questions.
Já, ég miklu rólegri núna heldur. I'm more chilled now than I was earlier on. I just want to thank you for your inspiring discussion. However, I feel that there is one thing missing. That's gender-based violence against queer people. So I know quite a bit about it in Iceland, but in Greenland and on the Faroe Islands, if you could inform me a bit.
Yeah, and thank you so much for bringing that on. I don't know if you do you know anything about the situation on this in Greenland, Julia?
I think, from my perspective, I lived there for so long, so I think it's quite. But I would say that there are a lot to do still, but I don't think there is a lot of discrimination regarding the queer people or LGBTQ and the society, and then they are well taken in, and they can marry. They have the laws. They can get married, you know, gay or be trans, or you know, from. But there are much more that. I mean, I never had this feeling where there have been any, you know, total big issue. But I'm sure there is. They had battles. They had their battles, and they still have battles to take. but I think they're not, they're not outsiders like that anymore today in 2025.
Do you want to elaborate in a Faroese context?
Yeah, in the Faroe Islands, we see that queer people are very behind in being treated equal. That's obvious for everyone. I have worked with, I've had like support groups for trans youths, and they have had all, like they were 15, and they had all experienced hate crimes when they were outside. Some had been spit on and shoved, and so this is something queer people experience all the time in the Faroe Islands. We have some laws that are supposed to protect queer people, but every time a hate crime or a crime against happens, it's always debated. It's always like, I don't think this wasn't really a hate crime, was it? It's like it's always up for debate what it really was, when we all know that it was based on their gender and their identity. So I think we still have a long way to go in the Faroe Islands. As I said before, I don't know if you know, like in Tórshavn, the city, it's a progressive city, lots of young people, and I think queer people feel safer there than outside of Tórshavn. But still, it's not easy being queer. It really isn't. Right.
And maybe I can just add that from a Danish perspective, the situation is really bad on gender-based violence against queer people, especially against trans people. And what we are experiencing is as well that you are unable to protect people with the law. Although we have actually a law that is supposed to, this paragraph 243, but unfortunately it doesn't in practice protect people, because very often it is not taken seriously by the police, and very often things are there's being asked questions on whether or not this is just a performance, or if it's really a gender identity, or if it's just all these conversations we have had.
Exactly the same.
And it is just devastating, because what we can see from the inquiries into the mental health of the people in Denmark, we can see that queer people are really low on life quality and also on mental health. So it is a great issue that we need to have a much better grasp of in the future.
Yeah, tack för det. Yeah, one last question. So I know you were talking about like we don't need maybe just more educational, awareness, like teach the kids young in school to be able to tackle these problems. But I'm a teacher, so I have to speak from that. And I teach gender studies in secondary school. And this is a subject that has been taught for quite some time here in Iceland. I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, it's not taught in your respective countries on that level. It's not an option, I think. Here it is always been quite popular within the school that I teach at, and in other schools they have it as a mandatory class. But now we're seeing a different kind of backlash to this, along with every single backlash we have talked about. But now we have people in parliament, or men in parliament, young men, coming forward and saying that we are only pushing an agenda, and that we should ban gender studies in school, for secondary school. Is this something that you recognize from your countries, or is it so far off because they don't even teach it at that level?
I really want to answer this, because I have an organization that does sexual education for young people. So I believe in education. And in the Faroe Islands, it's not mandatory. It's mandatory in like public schools to have some form of sexual education.
So gender studies?
I know. gender studies is a foreign word in the Faroe Islands. So we've just agreed on sexual education. That's how far, that's where we are right now. I'm sorry, camera, but this is true if someone from the Faroe Islands is watching me.
And it's the same in Denmark.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's the same. You cannot even say that gender studies, the minister, he threw all these recommendations on gender studies in the waste basket.
Yeah. So we've just agreed upon right now, like this year, that there should be mandatory sexual education in public schools. This year. They've made Námsatlan. I don't know. Yeah, Námsatlan. So that's where we are right now. So talking about gender, talking about anything else other than a condom and chlamydia, I'm sorry. We're not there yet. I think we will be. And I think maybe that's why you are probably better at talking about this than we are in the Faroe Islands, because your kids and young people, maybe they don't agree, but they get the information. Do you know what I mean? So what was your question? I'm sorry.
And I just wanted to say that, just to be clear, that I am not against gender education, of course, but I really think we need to increase it a lot, and we need to go into at more ages. We need to go in earlier about communication and communication skills, and that was my meaning, that this one-layered approach that we are doing now, and it's more like taking a box, and that's always dangerous. So then we are just closing our eyes to all the other options that we need to be performing towards them.
But what I also think, I'm sorry, is that sometimes the right wing are very provoked because we think that we have we know what's best. Do you know what I mean? And it is provocative that someone is saying, well, this is the way you're supposed to live your life. This is the best way. And that's what I mean about being curious at how other people or how the other side thinks and why they think like this. And as you mentioned before, this deep-rooted stream underneath, the deep roots in patriarchy, to really tackle those, I think, is what's important, yeah.
I just want to give you the opportunity to answer as well, if you know how it is in Greenland on sexual education and gender education.
Yeah, I was fortunate to get those educations, and I think it's more liberal and more, open there, fortunately. And then, yeah, I don't have any. I never experienced any problem regarding those. And then talking about sexual, preferences and everything. And then, my friends who are bi or gay, maybe they're my circle. It's like that. I don't know. We are quite open, and then it just, we have those educations, and then they are talked about. Maybe, of course, they need to be improved a lot. And regarding the, where you should, like I said, that the law just they put it for samtykkelån, for acceptance.
The law on consent.
Yeah, consent. Yeah, they just put it, and then it's more viral, and but it's good. The good thing with the small population, it goes viral quite quickly, and then
Okay. Thank you very much. I can feel that we need to close the conversation, but thank you so much for attending it, and let's continue it just without my voice. Yeah.
Julia and Linda Dröpp, since I have you all here, is nice. What we are going to do now, the last part on our